One enemy remaining.
Spikes down. Placing swarm grenade. Placing swarm grenade. Placing sentry. Swarm grenade out. Swarm grenade out. Bot coming back.
Counteract reply destroyed.
We doing this or what?
Come on, little homies. Let's get it.
Still in sight. I have this fight.
Dizzy's up!
Trevor!
Still in sight.
Off your feet!
Turret out.
My spike carrier's down. I got the spike.
Spike down A.
Turret down. Our spike carrier is dead.
Last player standing. Flawless.
I'll do my job, you do yours.
Let's go mid, guys.
Oh, I love your voice.
Oh.
Go mid, guys, go mid.
Aguas, keep your guard up. Reloading!
Concussing! Flash out!
Cutting their vision. Cutting their vision.
Placing alarm bot.
Reloading! My spike carrier's down.
Spike down B. Last player standing. Flawless. The symphony of death.
Hurry to get used to it.
Tactics beat firepower. Use that.
Somebody's there.
Last player
carrier is
standing.
dead.
Spike down A.
Variable removed. My ultimate is ready. Placing swarm grenade. Placing sentry. Turret destroyed.
One enemy remaining.
Free. 'Initiated.
30 seconds left.
Got the spike. Area's clear.
We know more than we did before. Let's use that.
We win. We survive.
You want to play? Let's play.
Many enemies
Auf Wiedersehen.
Go, go, go.
Reloading.
80 minus 1.
Up and away. Dizzy has target. Reloading.
Push with me, push with me. What are you doing?
No.
Last player standing.
Ah, that's what you could
Why you
deserve.
push with me?
You deserve that.
Why?
Because there is two. I was fighting two.
Okay,
Kate
bismillah.
found you. Tripwire destroyed.
Say bismillah and we win.
Breach. Please start doing your job. Start doing your job.
Breaths and all that.
You're not doing your job. I'm seeing what you do.
You asked 2 rounds or play.
Here.
Last first, please.
Blinding.
The hunt begins.
Somebody's there. Reloading. Go get him, buddy.
Spikes down. Placing
One
swamp
enemy
grenade.
remaining.
My ult's ready.
Flawless.
What's up?
The city needs me. I
Good
can't
call.
be away for long. Let's end this.
Good job, my Azlax.
Bismillah.
Don't worry, guys. We will fuck them in the defense. We have,
Whoa, bro.
we have
thank
Cypher and we have Killjoy.
you. Whoa. I love your voice.
What the fuck? Flash bridge, please.
Enemy down.
Why don't flash fucking bridge? Why you don't flash?
Put down.
I flashed.
Why do you later? It's late. It was too late. There was Omen.
Reload.
You
Right there.
This guy.
Right there.
This guy.
Cage triggered.
Defend him. He's planting.
Last player standing. Spike down B.
The rush.
Nice try.
Last round before the switch.
Yeah, I should help Cypher, I think, but I heard someone behind me. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Anti. Do you have Vanta skin, guys?
Yeah, I have one skill for you. Come on.
Bro, he loves
Need a
you.
drop.
Thank you.
One here. Still in sight.
Blinding.
Mosh pit.
Reloading.
Turret out. Alarm bot out.
Too long, too long.
Planted. Busy as targets.
Placing swarm grenade.
Deployed destroyed.
Placing turret down.
Enemy
Swarm grenade
spotted.
out.
Oh
Last
no.
player standing.
My bad, my bad, my bad. Ah.
Okay, no, we gonna fuck them.
Yeah.
Switching sides. Deep breaths, everyone.
Your hearts.
Cypher, go take B. I will take A.
Placing swarm grenade. Placing swarm grenade. Placing alarm
Let's
bot.
have some fun.
One B, two B.
Camera taken out. Deploy destroyed.
Flash out.
Wow.
Placing sentry.
Blasting. Cornball. Yeah, it's like that.
Enemy spotted. B.
Wait, really?
Deploy destroyed.
They are
Enemy
on side,
spotted.
guys.
B.
One enemy remaining. Last player standing.
Good
Oh,
job.
thanks, guys.
Okay,
Thank you.
they're dead.
Thank you.
Take what's
important for my dick.
Stay alive. I want their life, not yours.
It was very important for my confidence. You won this round.
Placing swarm grenade.
Yeah, bro. Nice.
Placing swarm grenade. Turret out. Alarm bot out.
A lot A, mid and A. A.
This son of a bitch, I hope he will die today.
Enemy spotted.
Swarm grenade out.
Reloading. Enemy spotted A.
Good.
Last player standing.
Come back, I'm A first. All night. Oh the fuck. Ay ay ay.
I can't see them yet, but I can feel them getting ready.
Placing swarm grenade.
Embarrass them.
Placing swarm grenade. Placing alarm bot.
Turret is destroyed.
Ah,
Is me.
You disappoint me.
good job. They are all B.
Found you. Tripwire destroyed.
Clearing out. Reloading.
That's done.
Flash out.
Placing sentry. Target destroyed.
Concussing.
Enemy spotted me.
One enemy remaining.
Enemy spotted B.
Reloading.
Maybe top.
30 seconds left.
Good job.
Good job.
Give me a moment. I need to sit back. I need this.
Placing swarm grenade. Placing swarm grenade.
Keep up.
Placing alarm bot.
Enemy spotted mid.
Placing sentry.
I'm in A.
Right there.
Turret down. Swarm grenade out.
Spike planted. Last player standing.
Tremor.
Save, save, save. Go save, go save, go save.
Amateur. Hey door. I hate waiting. Let's do this.
Placing swarm grenade. Placing swarm grenade.
See you on the other side.
Alarm bot out.
Again, mid a lot.
Don't pick, guys.
No sweat. I got enemies mid.
Oh!
Kill.
Concussing.
Flash is ready.
Spike down mid. I'm good for 3.
Spike planted.
Not now, not now. Push with him, push with him. Oh,
One enemy remaining.
My ult's ready.
Last main.
Last player standing.
oh my god, what the fuck, guys?
Match
Oh,
point.
oh,
Will they try the same old tricks?
oh yeah, 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 yeah. Hello. No, 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 son. No.
Show us how it's done, Reyna.
You want to play? Let's play.
Here. Let's go! Too late. Camera taken out. Careful now. Tripwire destroyed. Many enemies B. Clearing out.
One down. My ultimate is ready.
Freak. Off your feet!
Initiated. Last player standing. Attackers win.
شنو فيه؟ انا افيتشيك اجبلي صبر صبر انا افيتشيك مع الدراري الدراري انا صحاب واش كاين خصني جوج بلايص خصني جوج
عندي
بلايص
عرس ديال القراوده انا نجربها.
خصني جوج بلايص الدراري عندي جوج بلايص الدراري
نص
داتني اجي عندي كوكايين.
ما كاينينش جوج بلايص صافي انا نخرج كنت باغي نافيتشيك الو تيست فين اخويا هانيه عمر كنت باغي ندخل مع هاد التيم ونافيتيك ساهله وما لقيتهم 4 صافي انا نقول بلاش حيد
شتك
آه.
طلعنا اليوم نقول 3 اليوم طلعت
معلم الصوت نايس واش واقيلا اول مره كتطلع جول 3 ولا فايت فاصل شي رانك
انا بلات جوج اصاحبي
با جوج كويس نايس نسيت الكونت ديالك دلوقتي لي الكونت
بعثت ليه صندوق ويندوز
بس افيت
طرحها مشيت
ها
انا ما عرفت
شوف هاد خونا اللي بيدخل معانا يلا تكونيكتا
Match found.
ايه يضربوا لنا بالك حيت بدين تكيف بالك انا نسأل بيكي نمشي نتكيف بسرعة
Stand in my way.
ويز
خويا باقي ما دخلتش انا ما فهمتش هاد الحبس هذا فالو
ايه
كتسمعني
Entraba.
ترتي سيش سيب سي guys سي كلوف
طب الو بس ما فهمتش اخو خرج لي من الجيم وما عرفتش ما باش يدخل لي اصلا من الاول.
ريميك درنا.
ريميك فاك بقى حاصل ليا في هذاك داك المنيو.
ارضيك وداود لك حبونا نصيفط لك انفيد.
ما شفتهاش لا ما شفتها.
Match found.
ايه هادي
Stand in my way. I dare you.
ولا
ولا
Oh là là.
باتابيم.
طب امك.
اوكي كلها والله ديدلوك اللي تيدوي.
ها
كلوب اللي دوا دابا ولا داك ديدلوك.
اي معاك عندي فيه 2 سنتيمتر هاد القحيبه. عبدو كيفاش كتعرف الايمي مار ديالك في فالورانت تراكر؟ كيفاش؟ وعبدو
ويلي
كيفاش
كيفاش كتعرف بلي الايمي مار ديالك في
واش طالع ولا هابط
اه
اللوبي عم كيحطوك
Match
ايما
found.
ما كيطلعش ليك في فالورانت تراكر.
دائما تعلق هذاك الشيء نتاع شوف نهار تكون انت جولد كيحطوك مع جام واحد بلاط 3 بلاط 2 بلاط هاي بلاطو جام واحد كتعرف بلي المار تاعك طالع. الا كانوا كيحطوك مع سيلفر جولد واحد جولد
صح.
لا فوق انك راك مخوف.
Stand in my way. I dare you.
لعبوا لهم فضل ما يورا
يورو شي
يورا عندي قصه زوينه مع هاد الموب.
انت كتعرف تكسر بيورو. انا شفتك البارح.
ايه خليتي داك الطرح كلاس شي
نايس جولي
حبا هذيك الطرح قوي ولكن كنقلب على ديك الريكوردي. عاود هذاك اصاحبي كتشوف ليه
لك تحطه في يوتيوب هذاك. وات ذا فاك تيخو نو تيخو نو تيخو. تري انيشي نو نو نو.
قودة لا لا خليه
تروا انيشيتور.
اخي خصنا ديريست اللي تخلينا كنعني
اوكي جو فور تيخو اوكي.
راك قريب على الديفانس باش الا كنحطونا اتاك ما نتحواش.
اوكي جو فور تيخو
قولوا له ماشي سنتر مزيان ما قرا خصنا
راه ما قريناش. Can you please say or Cypher or something like that? Naruto. Naruto. Recipe.
ما يلعبش هذا صافي.
لا هذا جيكو وقودة حيد طيخو اللي مزيان دا جيكو. ويلي
بيزنس سبايك هذا
قرب سيفر عليك قرب.
عندهم صيفر صاحبي سانتي جوج 2 سانتي اللي عندهم المال. طيب
حاضر معاك ماشي شي حاجه قلت لا
Delves into the maw of the earth. Jagged
واحد اللي
teeth
يصير
of
غير
rock
أو
tower
تساوي.
above you. A
Yeah.
secret was stored here, but no secret was kept there.
Yeah.
كلاسيكي او دق حبه كلاسيكي.
راه سيلفر حقيقي. انا اول كونت عندي هو
لا
هذا.
يعني كلاسيك خصوصا ضوئيه.
انا فاسك يلاه بديت اللعبه راه يلاه شي 4 شهور هادي تقريبا شي 5 شهور دابا.
اي
عمرني ما قصرت كونتر سترايك ولا شي لعبه اخرى. ايه باش نبدلوا الكونترولز ولا
Come on guys.
الله اكبر. متناش تلقى واحد بقينا واحد بواحد نو بلانش. شي جوج كاينين الفوق.
Last player standing.
ايوا
Spike down A.
ايوا بقالين عليك الفوق. عليك هذاك المسخ ديالو. الله اكبر.
guys push with me. انا واحد يخلص.
I'll do the rest.
كنت في بارامترز واحد اللعبه انت. يلا زيد الله.
سنوبي هاد القلاوي راه مسكونه صاحبي. راه كنجلس ماشي هول طوغل يعني خصني نجلس ونعاود نبرك واش نوقف ماشي نبقى مهول ديال
الكونترول ياك. هذيك سميتها كتوغل كراود دير ليها اوف دير لها اوف. عندك
ما خداماش.
Got the spike.
حلو تاكد راه يخدم ده انا حيدتها هي
تنجلس انا قلاوي تنجلس
شوف ماذا نخدم شوف شوف
وانت انا كندير هكا ما ولدش واش
هي توغل كراوش صاحبي كاينه في الفوق.
هاي توغل كراوش هاي صافي. وين باقي واش ندير اوف
دير لها اوف
مازال
مازال بروتيجيو.
صافي ندير مزيان.
Enemy spotted B.
صفر
30 seconds left.
ايوا
يلا مشيو لايه.
Dizzy has targets.
ولا تايمينج.
Last player
الله
standing.
اكبر.
Spike down A. 10 seconds left.
عليك الروح.
Time to take these arms for a spin.
Fantastic معك Snoop your left.
I need a drop. Thanks.
Thank you.
استني
In i skärselden. Forever.
Aj, ودك اللي بقى.
Up and away. Dizzy has targets.
Tamam, toplam.
Cutting through.
Down.
نايس
Perfect.
لا ولا بوشي دابا كان نموت بقيت الفيترز
Spike planted.
Last player standing. One enemy
I'll
remaining.
take
One enemy remaining.
Good for 3.
Ben mi?
Nice ready.
أصدم
الو
رن شد هذا. Good job.
Let's go.
فيديو بيا نقلها واحد قرب
A second wind.
فيديو
Let your senses come alive.
خلاوي
I need a drop.
وش اللي راكي زدان نقلها ولا كيكو
انا
بايم
دخلت بيتي وبي باش قتلت هذيك
Thanks.
شوف جوكو تي بيتي
Hey, other me. Sorry in advance.
Concussing. Clearing out.
Saw you.
Time to jump.
Scanning ahead.
Shot flash.
Ay.
غادي نموت
اون فلاشي وجوج فلاشات ماشي واحد
ماشي.
ما كيتفري والله
لازم خراطير تواجد.
بقى
هو اللي مكنبر على الخراب.
Spike down. Attacker spawn.
مشكلة مات والله لا مشكلة.
كيرو لو ديو في اوبن
Nice. I got the spike.
جو بي
ما يبدا
هاداش كيديروا
فاهمية
هاداش كيدير عبدو كيرو اسمع كيرو لو ديو في الاوبن لو دي تسب
No peeking.
واحد قرب بلا كيرو لو دي في الاوبن
Got the spike, Wings.
One enemy remaining.
فاهمية
وان شوت 100
Seconds left.
Spike's
100
taken.
close.
Thanks.
Just go sit, one go sit. ايوي دابا راك عندي طرطوسة نقبها مصري
في موضوع القلب
بيكي مشي في ديشا
نايس
ديك.
Cálmate, hotshot.
If you're not being shot at, you're doing something wrong.
على زيرو كيلو صاحبي ما فهمتش.
Break away.
الله
اخويا راكي بيتي وز برا شحال مرة متعرف على التقلوة
Dizzy's up top.
ولا جيكو وليناو
Revealing area.
Reloading.
هرب شحال هادشي ديال ويت فلاش.
Worthless.
One enemy remaining.
عطلم بوم ديريكت. معلم. ولا لا تعطلم بوم بالله.
جو يطلق حباجات. كنا معاكم شويه.
Bow and arrow is
داك التمبر ولفا بحال داير التريجر. دوك التكا كيدير تاع التريجر فهمتي.
تاع التكنو
قرب كتجي غير التكنو فين مشى.
التكنو راه مشغول بالحياة اللي عنده.
بيتزوج. قرب يتزوج.
خليهم يسولني انا مجوج بيه انا ما عرفتش متزوج لا لا ما يكونش باقي غير تمشي مع اكبر هاد الايامات عنده خدمه واقع هاد الشهر هذا غتجيب
لي فيديك اورب لا 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 كمل بي وين
هذاك شي واحد الله يسر اليمين.
There they are.
It's you and me.
يجيك الريفيل حبيبي
خوك.
Flash out.
120 كيلو 120 كيلو.
One enemy remaining.
معلم.
No more to oppose us.
عطي الريفيل اللي درتي هو مقود.
عرفتك غتمشي تماك خويا
We
ضايع
are
ضايع
strong because we
طيب لا
are together.
مقود.
Don't forget
قلت اليوم.
شي سكينة من الله يحفظك.
I need a drop.
اخويا ثانك يو.
reloading.
هادي سبايك ندير
Spikes here.
ما ينفع ما يضر ودق
لا تنفع
Cutting through. You want to play? Let's play.
سافر هنايا سافر هنايا
نمبر بي.
بجوجهم
Enemy mark.
سافر طرف اوكي انا ما عرفت كيف سافر في انورمال طرف
وين مشيو لبي وصافي.
تمرن
شتي تشامبر
كاين دمو.
شتيه
لا
ناري. اوه
كيف بيس باش نشوف مالي
قرب انا
عاش بيكاني من الناس راه كيف
اي المعده اي
Our carrier is dead.
Spike down B.
Got the spike.
سبراي
معلم.
Last player standing.
كلبها.
ضرب هرسلش
30 seconds left.
داون يا
داون لعب بليون هو
قلت انا در الجدار الحضيضي
شوف غير ريفيلي غندروني الريفيلي شوف اسمع مع تلقى ريفيل هنايا شوف تلقى التيبي تاعك هنايا مع نقول لك سير فلاش مع نقول لك سير عاتق فيه وسير غتلقاهم كلهم ريفيلين قدام خلينا دروني كوس
Deploying drone.
سيف تراب كروس
انا
شوف سير
والله الا كتحطها من عند فوق.
اس
درتي قبيله فاش التليفون كمل بنير.
It's you and me.
ولي سبكتر.
One enemy remaining.
والله لا تديك سبكتر بالله. والله لا تديك سبكتر بالله. والله لا خورط السبكتر بالله.
ولا لقحام انتوما والله بريت كنت لقحام ويز والقلاوه
لا
ودي اللقطه هاد ندخل انا
ترى واش ترى بوشيتي انت باقي كاع ما بجيت ترى مشيتي
ولا راه ديال اللقطه صاحبي انا نبدا
ولا
تخلينا اللي ما كيصلحش
شوف انا بارك شوف بارك انايا بارك نسيت انا ايزوب الايل ديالو بالسبيكتر الله يجعل بارك
بايمي
هاك
Deploying drone.
الله ينسى عليكم كاميرا هنا
هو لسه كلوز هو لسه هنا حاسس
واو
One enemy remaining.
جوا
Have one of these. Reloading. Flawless.
You all are wonderful.
حويت لي امهم
Why are they so determined to die?
هذا قلت قاص حضر حيت هزت الشوط بحال ما عندوش تليفون
Vamonos, run it back.
خويا كنربحو فهاد اي
Take cover.
اجي نروتيتو كاع حنا جبال لكم
My ult is ready.
اجبال لكم نقلبوها
Revealing area. There they are.
الله اكبر سير الله عاود عطيهم شويه اخرى ناري داني انا من فوق بغيت نحيد وانت
ادخلوا معايا الله ينعطكم ما كتستناو باك كل ما تشوف
كلهم تمك
تدي انت جالس مورا السموك استمرت
ورا مشكله
مزيان اخليك
عندي لهم واحد اللعيبه
لا بلاش يبيك بلاش
استني هرب قوي
ضبطوا واحد شويه باش نتلقى لهم في هاد القنيت هذا
السلاح انا كون حواني
One enemy remaining.
يا جيكو جاي من هنا بلاش
انا كنت جيك اف كي ديال اف كي
اف كي وات ذا فاك ناري
هو ليسر تما هو كاع لل هو رجع
برو
جاوبنا خالص نايس جيجو نايس You go AFK and you come back, bro. Nice.
He says the bullets tickle.
Stop.
شوف هاد لاين اب شوف
بديت شفتي ورجعتي ياك بديت شفتي ورجعتي نسيت
تفرج
Dream big, make it happen.
عرفتي فين هي تحت
Dizzy shot's done.
Reloading.
Enemy A.
Forever. Here we go.
Reloading. Dropping smoke.
باك دخل تبين مليار واحد
حلو منها
سيريور زين
لا ولا مشي
take flight.
يفوني ولا دقها 70 مليار واحد.
Enemy mark.
Sorry.
باك ريدي.
Flash out!
والله تزقت يا هذا.
One enemy
Go A.
remaining. Flawless.
حبت اللي يصير في اللاين عنده هربوا.
Last round in the half.
Buy all you need.
Spike's
Who
here.
needs a buy?
انا ذاك
Who needs
البندر
a
ونعطيك
buy?
الشريف يلا.
علاوي.
ايوا اخوي. هكا.
لا
Gun here.
اي ولا كلب الله ينعم خبطان فوق.
Somebody's there. Mosh pit.
سنتر.
Scanning ahead.
Come side.
Come, little man.
كم سيت سير كم سيت.
No bother.
مش يورو مش يورو.
لا ولا بوش انا بدي نهرب.
ما يصير شي
فلاش
حاجة
فلاش يورو فلاش عليه الفوق فلاش عليه فوق. تعال فوق.
الله ينعطب.
Catch your fun ready. My turn.
Yeah. Monster on the loose. Last player standing.
Back like I never left.
اسبانيش.
Switching sides. Hey, little man, pump us up. Let's hear it.
اللي ما كلفش مزيان كلف لا اعطاك مزيان
ياك
اعطاك مزيان كلف اوكي كيكو كم
يا ربك 3 4 واقفين قدامي.
واش بي ولا ايه؟ الله
Spike
الله
planted.
what the fuck لاقيت فول لاق فول لاق
واحد يمين واحد انون.
Last player standing.
انا وطب انا مصمم على كيفاش تموتوا بهذيك
لقيت انا اطلع لي اثنين.
I'll do my job, you do yours.
حبيتك تكمل طب هولد يتم على تايمينج
Keep up.
لك تبي تبوش يا سميت نستاني لك الزروكي.
لا ما فيش
يا خليك اللور.
قبيله بتين فلان كم ساعه تقوم نمشي في سين.
خليهم شويه لهم تيجيو.
ذاك مت.
واو شمال. صار 50 كلوف.
Spike planted.
Fake teleport.
Last player standing.
بس استر ما عندكش تايم سير
امشي كلاور ام تي في.
واش هاد السيفر عندك باش تشري فاندال نيكست راوند اصاحبي سير.
دابا بحال هذا اللي هاد السبيكتر غنبوشي ما نقد حيت السبيكتر ولو هو لو.
Alright, homies, chill. We'll go again. Damn, you love being here.
نسر سبيكتر كاين تفرفير.
ما تصرت لي.
ها
حويده التامر ما غاديش تصرت لي.
تيجيو مشايفين هادو خاصهم معاهم شي سطان ماشي جلسة البرد.
اللاين اب جيب بلا ما كاينش.
شوف
هنا
بي 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 بي.
Someone there.
هو بطم هير.
Spike planted.
جنبر لسه
هو فاطم.
خلينا نمشيو نساليو مع هادو.
فاطم هو كلر تسبي.
واخا
One enemy remaining.
ميت
صافي خليه تيجي على خاطر.
Last player standing.
بنخ الصق
حوي جيب فاطم.
والله
سبيكتر خوت.
هو تقدير الغرض.
ما غادي ام كلثوم. اصلا نشري الزام البو ما كايناش الجرا ولا غولو.
هي اللي فاهم.
قرب بقى نقرر على التقلوه امبوسيبل.
Get on with it.
ما كاين هنا.
في الميت كلوب.
واش على ما خلوه تاجي.
It's you and me.
Oh yeah, monster on the loose.
درت ليه كيما درتي ليه والله الا داك الشيء اللي درت ليه
Hit the hook.
Spike planted.
Right there.
One enemy remaining.
هذا ديفيز.
نيف
كندير له الحوايج في الجنة واحد قرب. يا ربي من المنكر فيها يا بسيطة فيها.
Something nice to kill them with. Is to leave.
كاين لا فاندال الطقن هو سبيكتر واحد قرب.
نشري ليك.
لا انت في عاد جري شويه بينك شويه
سير الله.
اوكي
دوك يجيو البيع ولا بيلعبوا بيه باين.
Okay. No surely.
بخمين
اي ضربت واحد دقيقة اجي لاعبين طاقة حتى هي.
ويلي
لا لاعبين
ايه
يلا سير والله.
Spike down A.
Reload. Right there.
Hi. Bye.
One enemy remaining.
طب الهيد هو هيري
Like I never left.
What the fuck love, what the fuck.
30 seconds left.
Flash out.
ما سوي لك اللي
Body bags.
Reloading. We do what we do. Get back to chilling.
قلب الأوب.
سير الله. ولكن سلي ميد. ما تلعبش ميد.
لا.
بي.
بالك لعب الأوب ولا لا؟
ما تيبان لي بلاش حيت انا 4 دابا. يضربوا عليك جوج يبوشيو عليك تمشي تجيب فيها.
في قال لك غادي يمشي. في قال لك مسافين.
رودي برا رودي.
بي.
كلو.
Dizzy has targets. Enemy B. No peeking.
معلمين.
No peeking.
Get him, wingman.
One enemy remaining.
أطي. بريك.
Spike planted.
فيكي.
هاي. هاو في موراك.
Refreshing.
Come leave.
Thanks. No radionite for you, wee man.
Match point.
It's been grand, but I've got places to avoid and people to ignore, so let's
Oh,
finish
click
this.
orb.
Hello. How are you? Ça va?
سير قال لي سالي.
You want to play? Let's play.
يا تشجع. طبعا. سبحان الدراري. عرفتي شنو؟ خصنا واقيلا نموت الطرح هذا باش يرجع يربح معنا الطرح. حيت لا رجع اي اف كي ما ربح تقلبو. بس نسوي لك الباب. سمعت شنو بي؟ خصنا واقيلا نخسرو الراوند بلا ما يرجع.
ميد.
Reloading.
I'll handle this.
Dropping a
Mid. One mid.
One enemy remaining.
Out. Right there.
Last player standing.
باش نخسرو خصنا نخسرو صاحبي. باش يرجع بين ما يرجع الدري.
لا.
ها؟
لا. خصني نمشي انا.
انت انا خصني نمشي صراحة.
علاش شفت هذا؟ ما نخرجش هذا عنده الحق.
لا نتسنى صاحبي يرجع. لا ورجع سي بون هو رجع. يلا زيرو كيو. يلا اخويا راه تسنيناك باش تربح معنا الطرح.
Time to jump.
Try not to die.
بيبي.
Oh yeah! Monster on the loose! Up and away!
Concussing! Blasting!
Spike planted.
Enemy spotted B.
Reload.
My turn.
My buddy's defusing.
One enemy remaining.
Oh, لا جيت شنو
Reloading.
Go.
Defenders win. Hey, GG, yo.
يلا بس نبي.
والله يا اخي ترى
سبقت تعود تكسر واحد شوية.
ما اعرف يقدر هلا
سير الله يلا بصراحة.
You have two options. You can loudly proclaim your intentions to defeat the people behind it, making yourself look good and noble in the process. But in the end, this tends to polarize the public. You create one hardened enemy for every sympathizer won over to the cause, and it makes your intentions obvious. If the enemy is crafty, this makes it almost impossible to defeat them. Or, if it is results you are after, you must learn instead to play the fox, letting go of your moral purity. You resist the pull to get emotional, and you craft strategic maneuvers designed to win public support. You shift your position to suit the circumstance, baiting the enemy into actions that will win you sympathy. You conceal your intentions. Think of it as war short of unnecessary violence. You are called to do whatever it takes to defeat the enemy. There is no nobility in losing if an injustice is allowed to prevail. Static situations. In any venture, people quickly create rules and conventions that must be followed. This is often necessary to instill some discipline and order. But most often these rules and conventions are arbitrary. They are based on something that was successful in the past but might have little relevance to the present. They are often instruments for those in power to maintain their grip and keep the group unified. If this goes on long enough, they become stultifying and crowd out any new ways for doing things. In such a situation, what is called for is the total destruction of these dead conventions, creating space for something new. In other words, you must be the complete lion, as bad as can be. This was how several important black jazz musicians, such as Charlie Parker, Thelonious Monk, and Dizzy Gillespie, responded to the musical conventions that had hardened in the early 1940s. From its more freewheeling earlier days, jazz had become co-opted by white performers and audiences. The sound that became popular, big band, swing, was more controlled and regimented. To make any money in the business, you had to play by the rules and perform these popular genres. But even those black musicians who followed the conventions were still paid considerably less than their white counterparts. The only way around this oppressive situation was to destroy it with a completely new sound, in this case with something that later became known as bebop. This new genre went against all the current conventions. The music was wild and improvisatory. As it became popular, it gave these musicians some space to perform on their own terms and some control over their careers. Now the static situation was broken and the field was left open to the great jazz innovations of the 1950s and 60s. In general, you must be less respectful of the rules that other people have established. They do not necessarily fit the times or your temperament. And there is great power to be had by being the one to initiate a new order. Impossible dynamics. Sometimes in life you find yourself in a negative situation that cannot be improved no matter what you do. You might find yourself working for people who are irrational. Their actions seem to serve no purpose apart from imposing their power and making you miserable. Everything you do is wrong. Or it could be a relationship in which you are constantly forced to rescue a person. This usually involves types who present themselves as weak victims in need of attention and assistance. They stir up a lot of drama around them. No matter what you do, the need to be rescued keeps recurring. You can recognize this dynamic by your emotional need to somehow solve the problem, mixed with your complete frustration in finding any kind of reasonable answer. In truth, the only viable solution is to terminate the relationship. No arguing, no bargaining, no compromising. You leave the job, there are always others. You leave the person who is tormenting you with as much finality as possible. Resist the temptation to feel any guilt. You need to create as much distance as possible so they cannot inveigle these emotions into you. They must become dead to you so you can go on with your life. Reversal of perspective. The problem with confrontational moments and why we often seek to avoid them is that they churn up a lot of unpleasant emotions. We feel personally aggrieved that someone is trying to hurt or harm us. This makes us wonder about ourselves and feel insecure. Did we deserve this in some way? If we go through a few of these unpleasant moments, we become increasingly skittish. But this is really a problem of perception. In our own inner turmoil, we tend to exaggerate the negative intentions of our opponents. In general, we take conflicts far too personally. People have problems and traumas that they carry with them from their childhood on. Most often, when they do something to harm or block us, it really is not directed at us personally. It comes from some unfinished business from the past or deep insecurities. We happen to cross their path at the wrong moment. It is essential that you develop the reverse perspective. Life naturally involves conflicting interests. People have their own issues, their own agendas, and they collide with yours. Instead of taking this personally or concerning yourself with people's intentions, you must simply work to protect and advance yourself in this competitive game, this bloody arena. Focus your attention on their maneuvers and how to deflect them. When you have to resort to something that isn't conventionally moral, it is just another maneuver you are executing in the game, nothing to feel guilty about. You accept human nature and the idea that people will resort to aggression. This calm, detached perspective will make it that much easier to design the perfect strategy for blunting their aggression. With your emotions unscathed by these battles, you will grow accustomed to them and will even take some pleasure in fighting them well. In the ring, our opponents can gouge us with their nails or butt us with their heads and leave a bruise. But we don't denounce them for it or get upset with them or regard them from then on as violent types. We just keep an eye on them, not out of hatred or suspicion, just keeping a friendly distance. We need to do that in other areas. We need to excuse what our sparring partners do and just keep our distance, without suspicion or hatred. Marcus Aurelius, Chapter 6. Lead from the front, authority. In any group, the person on top consciously or unconsciously sets the tone. If leaders are fearful, hesitant to take any risks, or overly concerned for their ego and reputation, then this invariably filters its way through the entire group and makes effective action impossible. Complaining and haranguing people to work harder has a counterproductive effect. You must adopt the opposite style. Imbue your troops with the proper spirit through your actions, not words. They see you working harder than anyone, holding yourself to the highest standards, taking risks with confidence, and making tough decisions. This inspires and binds the group together. In these democratic times, you must practice what you preach. The hustler king. No man can properly command an army from the rear. He must be at the front, at the very head of the army. He must be seen there, and the effect of his mind and personal energy must be felt by every officer and man present with it. General William T. Sherman. By the spring of 1991, young Curtis Jackson had proved himself to be one of the savviest hustlers in the neighborhood. His pool of repeat customers had increased to a point where he had to hire his own crew to keep up with their demand. But as he knew, nothing good ever lasts too long in the hood. Just as Curtis was making plans to expand his business, an older hustler named Wayne began to make threatening gestures towards him. Wayne had recently returned to the streets from prison. He was determined to make as much money as fast as possible and then dominate the local drug trade. Curtis, it seemed, was his main rival. He tried to intimidate the younger hustler, warning him that he better curtail his operations or pay a price. Curtis ignored him. Then Wayne decided to up the ante. He sent out word on the street that he was going to have Curtis killed. Curtis had seen this happen before and he knew what would happen next. Wayne would never do the job himself. He could not risk a return to prison. Instead, he was banking on the fact that some young kid would hear of his desire to kill Curtis and, eager to gain some street credibility, would take it upon himself to do the dirty work. Sure enough, a few days after hearing of Wayne's intentions, Curtis noticed a young kid named Nitty trailing him on the streets. He felt certain that Nitty was the one planning to do the hit, and it would happen soon. This was the depressing dynamic of hustling in the hood. The more success a hustler had, the more he attracted the wrong kind of attention. Unless he inspired some fear and terror, rivals would keep coming at him, trying to take what he had and continually threatening his position on the streets. Once that started to happen, the once successful dealer would find himself drawn into a cycle of violence, reprisals, and time in the pen. There were a few hustlers, however, who had somehow managed to rise above this dynamic. In the hood, They were like kings. Just hearing their names or seeing them on the street would elicit a gut reaction, a mix of fright and admiration. What elevated them above others was a series of actions they had taken in the past that demonstrated they were fearless and smart. Their maneuvers would be unpredictable and all the more terrifying for it. If people thought of challenging them, they would quickly remember what these types had done in other circumstances and back off. All of this would give them an aura of power and mystery. Instead of challengers on all sides, they would have disciples ready to follow them as far as they wanted. If Curtis saw himself as the kingly type, it was time now to show it to others, as dramatically as possible. With death staring him in the face, he worked to control his emotions and thought long and hard about the dilemma that Wayne had posed. If instead he went after Nitty and killed him, the police would catch Curtis and he would end up in prison for a long time, an equally fortunate result for Wayne. And if he did nothing, Nitty would finish him off. But Wayne's strategy had a fatal flaw: his fear of doing the job with his own hands. He was no king himself, but just another frightened hustler pretending to be tough. Curtis would come after him from an unexpected angle and turn everything around. Without wasting any more time, he asked a member of his crew named Tony to accompany him that afternoon. Together they surprised Nitty on the street, and while Tony held him, Curtis slashed the kid in the face with a razor blade. He did it just deep enough to send him screaming to the hospital and to leave a nice scar for a while. Then a few hours later, he and Tony found Wayne's empty car and shot it up. An ambiguous message that meant either they hoped he was inside, or they were taunting him to come out and attack them in the open. The following day, the dominoes fell just as Curtis thought they would. Nitty sought out Wayne, expecting that the two of them would then go together to exact revenge on Curtis. After all, Wayne had been attacked as well. Wayne, however, still insisted the kid do it alone. Now Nitty could see through the game. He was just the patsy to do the dirty work, and Wayne was not as tough as he had made himself out to be. Nitty would have nothing more to do with him, but he was also too afraid to take on Curtis by himself. He decided he could live with the scar. Wayne was now in a delicate position. If he asked someone else to do the job, it would start to look like what it was: a man too scared to do it himself. Better to let the whole thing just go away. In the days to come, the hood was abuzz with the story of what had happened. Young Curtis had outmaneuvered and outsmarted the older rival. Unlike the latter, he was unafraid to do the violence himself. What he had done was bold and dramatic. It had come out of nowhere. Every time people would see Nitty on the streets with the long scar on his face, they were reminded of the incident. Rivals would now have to think twice before challenging his status. He showed he was tough and crafty. And those in his crew were duly impressed with his sang-froid and how he had turned the situation around. They now saw him differently, as somebody who could last in this jungle and was worth following. Curtis followed this up with other similar actions, and slowly he elevated himself above the other hustlers. Now there were younger ones who looked up to him and would soon form the core of a devoted band of disciples who would help him in his transition into music. After the success of his first album in 2003, Curtis, now known as 50 Cent, began to realize his dream of forging a business empire. But as this took shape in the months and years to follow, he began to feel that something was wrong. It would be natural to believe that with his current position and fame, those working for him would simply follow his lead and do what he wanted. But his whole life had been a lesson in the opposite. People continually take from you. They doubt your powers and challenge you. In this environment, his executives and managers were not trying to take his money or his life, but rather he had the feeling they were nibbling away at his power, trying to soften his image and make him more corporate and predictable. If he let this go on, he would lose the only quality that made him different: his propensity to take risks and do the unexpected. He might become a safe investment, but he would no longer be a leader and a creative force. In this world, you cannot relax and rest on your name, your past achievements, your title. You have to fight to impose your difference and compel people to follow your lead. All of these thoughts became painfully clear to him in the summer of 2007. His third album, Curtis, was to be released in September of that year, and everyone seemed to be asleep. The record label, Interscope, was acting as if the album would sell itself. His management team had put together a marketing campaign that he felt was too tame, passive, and corporate. They were trying to control too much. Then one August afternoon, an employee at G-Unit Records, 50's own label within Interscope, told him that a video from the upcoming album somehow just got leaked to the internet. If it spread, it would mess up the carefully orchestrated rollout of songs that had been planned for that month. 50 was the first to hear of this, and after contemplating what to do next, he decided it was finally time to shake up the dynamic, do the unpredictable, and play the part of the Hustler King. He called into his office his radio and internet team at G-Unit. Instead of working to contain the viral spread of the video, the usual response to such a problem and what management would advocate, he ordered them to surreptitiously leak it to other sites and let it spread like wildfire. On top of this move, they created the following story to tell journalists for public consumption. When 50 heard of the leak, he flew into a wild rage. He threw his phone at the window with such force he cracked it. He tore the plasma TV off the wall and smashed it into pieces. He left the building in a fit, and the last thing they heard him yelling was that he was shutting it all down and going on vacation. That evening, on 50's orders, they had the maintenance man for the building take pictures of the damage, all faked for this purpose, and then leaked the photos to the internet. They were to keep all of this a secret. Not even management was to know that this drama was completely manufactured. In the days to come, 50 watched with satisfaction as this story spread everywhere. Interscope was awakened from its slumber. Management was sent the message that he was now in command. If he refused to do any more publicity, as he had threatened, their whole campaign was doomed. They had to follow his lead here and let him set the tone for the publicity, which meant something more aggressive and fluid. Among 50's executives and employees, word spread quickly of what had supposedly happened. His reputation for being unpredictable and violent brought to life. When they now saw him in the offices, they felt a twinge of fear. Better to pay attention to what he wanted than risk witnessing his anger. And for the public, this was just the kind of story they expected from the thug rapper. Compelled their attention. They could laugh at his out-of-control antics, not realizing that it was 50, directing the drama, who would have the last laugh. The fearless approach. When I reached the top in business, I adjusted to my new position. I became bolder and crazier than before, and I listened even less to people who tried to slow me down. 50 Cent. Throughout history, we have witnessed the following pattern. Certain people stand out from the crowd because of some special skill or talent that they have. Perhaps they are masters at the political game, knowing how to charm and win the proper allies. Or maybe they have superior technical knowledge in their field. Or maybe they are the ones who initiate some bold venture that has success. In any event, these types suddenly find themselves in leadership positions, something for which their past experience and education has not prepared them. Now they are alone and on the top, their every decision and action scrutinized by the group and the public. The pressures can be intense. And what inevitably happens is that many of them unconsciously succumb to all kinds of fears. Whereas before they might have been bold and creative, now they grow cautious and conservative, aware of the heightened stakes. Secretly scared of being held accountable for the success of the group, they overdelegate, poll everyone for their opinions, or refrain from making the hard decisions. Or they become excessively dictatorial, trying to control everything, another sign of weakness and insecurity. It is the story of great senators who make lousy presidents, bold lieutenants who turn into mediocre generals, or top-level managers who become incompetent executives. And yet among the group there are inevitably a few who demonstrate the opposite. They rise to the position, displaying extraordinary leadership skills that no one had suspected were in them. We find in this group people like Napoleon Bonaparte, Mahatma Gandhi, and Winston Churchill. What links these people together is not some mysterious skill or bit of knowledge, but rather a quality of character, a temperament that reveals the essence of the art. They are fearless. They do not shrink from making the hard decisions by themselves. Instead, they seem to relish such responsibility. They do not suddenly become more conservative, but in fact show a propensity for bold action. They exhibit tremendous grace under fire. Such types come to understand in various ways that a leader has a unique power that generally goes untapped. Any group tends to assume the spirit and energy of the person on top. If that person is weak and passive, then the group tends to splinter into factions. If such leaders lack confidence, their insecurities tend to filter their way down the line. Their nervous, fretful moods put everyone on edge. But there is always the opposite possibility. A leader who is audacious, out in front, and setting the tone and agenda for the group sparks a higher energy level and confidence. Such a person on top does not need to yell or push people around. Those below want to follow his or her lead because it is strong and inspiring. In war, where leadership skills are more immediately apparent and necessary because lives are at stake, we can distinguish two leadership styles, from behind or from the front. The former type of general likes to stay in his tent or headquarters and bark out orders, feeling that having such distance makes it easier to command. This style can also mean involving lieutenants and other generals in important decisions, choosing to lead by committee. In both cases, the commander is trying to hide himself from scrutiny, accountability, and danger. The greatest generals in history, however, are invariably those who lead from the front and by themselves. They can be seen by the troops at the head of the army, exposing themselves to the same fate as any foot soldier. The Duke of Wellington said that the mere appearance of Napoleon Bonaparte at the head of his army translated into the equivalent of an additional 40,000 men. A kind of electrical charge passes through the troops. He is sharing in their sacrifices, leading by example. It has almost religious connotations. We notice the same two styles in business and politics as well. The executives who lead from behind will always try to disguise it as a virtue, the need for secrecy, or their desire to be more fair and democratic. But it really stems from fear, and it invariably leads to a lack of respect from those below. The opposite style, leading from the front and by example, has the same power in the office as it does on the battlefield. Leaders who work harder than anyone else, who practice what they preach, who are not afraid to be accountable for tough decisions or to take risks, will find they have created a well of respect that will pay great dividends down the road. They can ask for sacrifices, punish troublemakers, and make occasional mistakes all without facing the usual grumbling and doubts. They don't have to force their men and women to follow. People do so willingly. In urban environments such as Southside Queens, respect is an extremely important issue. In other places, your background, education, or resume might lend you some authority and credibility, but not in the hood. There, everyone starts from zero. To gain respect from your peers, you must repeatedly prove yourself. People are constantly prone to doubting your abilities and your power. You must show again and again that you have what it takes to thrive and to last. Big words and promises mean nothing. Only actions carry weight. If you are authentic, as tough as you seem to be, then you will earn the respect that will make people back off and you will stand out as someone authentic and worthy of respect. The greatest leaders in history all inevitably learned by experience the following lesson. It is much better to be feared and respected than to be loved. As a prime example, look at the film director John Ford, the man behind some of the greatest films in Hollywood history. The task of film directors can be particularly difficult. They have to deal with large crews, actors with their delicate egos, and dictatorial producers who want to meddle every step of the way, all the while being under extreme time limits and with large amounts of money at stake. The tendency for directors is to give ground on these various battlefields, to placate and cajole the actors, to let the producers have their way here and there, to gain some cooperation by being pleasant and likable. Ford was by nature a sensitive and empathetic man, but he learned that if he revealed this side of his personality, he quickly lost control over the final product. The actors and producers would begin to assert themselves, and the film would lose any sense of cohesion. He noticed that the notoriously nice directors never really lasted very long. They were pushed around and their films were lousy. Early on in his career, he decided he would have to forge a kind of mask for himself, that of a man who was implacable and even a bit frightening. On the set, he made it clear he was not the usual prima donna director. He would work longer hours than anyone. If they were filming on some location with harsh conditions, he would sleep in a tent like everyone else and share their bad food. On occasion, he would get into violent fistfights on the set, most often with his leading actors, such as John Wayne. These fights were not for show. They were bruising, and he engaged in them with all his strength, making the actors fight back with equal force. This would set a tone. An actor would tend to feel embarrassed by engaging in his usual prissy behavior and ego tantrums. Everyone was treated the same. Even the Archduke of Austria, trying to carve out a career as a Hollywood actor, was yelled at and pushed into a ditch by Ford himself. He had a unique way of directing actors. He would say only a few well-chosen words about what he wanted from them. Then, if they did the wrong thing on the set, he would brutally humiliate them in front of everyone. They quickly learned they had to pay attention to the few words he spoke and to his body language on the set, which would often tell more. They had to and bring even more of themselves into the part. Once, when the famous producer Samuel Goldwyn visited the set, He told Ford he just wanted to watch him work, a producer's way of spying and applying pressure. Ford didn't say a word. The next day, however, he visited Goldwyn in his office and just sat silently in the chair by Goldwyn's desk, glaring at him. After a while, Goldwyn, exasperated, asked him what he was doing. He just wanted to watch Goldwyn work, Ford answered. Goldwyn never visited him again on the set and quickly learned to give him his space. All of this had a strange and paradoxical effect on the cast and crew. They came to love working for John Ford and would die to gain a place among his exclusive team of return staff. His standards were so high it forced them to work harder. He made them superior actors and technicians. An occasional nice gesture or compliment on his part carried double the weight and would be remembered for a lifetime. The end results of his tough and unforgiving manner was that he managed to maintain a higher degree of control over the final product than most other directors, and his films were consistently of the highest quality. Nobody dared to challenge his authority, and he lasted in Hollywood as the king of westerns and action films for well over 40 years. An unprecedented achievement in the industry. Understand, to be a leader often requires making tough choices, getting people to do things against their will. If you have chosen the soft, pleasing, compliant style of leadership, out of fear of being disliked, you will find yourself with less and less room to compel people to work harder or make sacrifices. If you suddenly try to be tough, they often feel wounded and personally upset. They can move from love to hate. The opposite approach yields the opposite result. If you build a reputation for toughness and getting results, people might resent you and the respect that should be paid to their authority, but they feared that their chieftains and kings would accumulate too much power and oppress them. They often wondered why this particular person or family deserved such a lofty position. In many ancient cultures, the king was ritually put to death after a few years to ensure he would not turn into an oppressor. In more advanced ancient civilizations, there were constant rebellions against those in power, much more intense and numerous than anything we have known in the modern era. Of all the leaders in ancient times who had to deal with such difficulties, none stands out more than Moses. He had been chosen by God to Hebrews kept resorting to their endless complaining and recalcitrance. To overcome the seemingly impossible obstacles in his path, Moses resorted to a unique solution. He united the 12 constantly divided tribes around a single, simple cause, one God to worship, and the attainable goal of reaching the promised land. He was not there for power or glory but merely to lead them to this much-desired goal. Moses could not afford to absent himself for a day or two, or to ease up on his leadership. The tribes were continually prone to doubt him and forget the larger picture, the reason for their suffering. The Hebrew word for lead means to be out in front, to drive. He had to be out there constantly in the vanguard, unifying them around his vision of the promised land. This meant being ruthless with internal dissenters, putting whole families to death that stood in the way of the larger cause. In essence, Moses learned to play a role for the Hebrews, the man who is possessed of a vision from God, indomitable in spirit, and acting for the greater good. A normal tribe member would have to ask him or herself if this promised land was not something that existed merely in Moses's mind. But the force of his conviction and the determination to lead people to the promised land made it hard to doubt him. He had to play this role to the hilt to convince them his top position was legitimate and sanctioned by God. His ability to lead such a fractious group for some 40 years has to be considered the greatest masterpiece of leadership in history. We moderns believe we have moved far beyond our primitive tribal origins. After all, we live in a secular, rational world. A leader today needs to possess certain technical and managerial skills. But 3,000 years of civilization have not altered human nature, and in fact the endless difficulties that plagued such leaders as Moses have become only more acute. Whereas before we humans might think first of the tribe, we now think primarily of ourselves, our careers, and our narrow interests. Office politics is the extreme endpoint of this trend. We are now more distracted than ever, with thousands of bits of information competing for our attention in the course of a day. This makes us less patient and capable of seeing the larger picture. If we were being led out of slavery, we would not be able to focus on the promised land for more than a few minutes. We are much more skeptical when it comes to those in authority. We still feel the ancient ambivalence towards rulers. Instead of sacrificing them, we feed them to the press and secretly gloat in their downfall. To be a leader now means overcoming these aspects of human nature while still seeming to be fair and decent, an almost impossible task. At the same time, however, people feel this division and selfishness as a depressing phenomenon. They desperately want to believe in a cause, to work for the greater good, to follow a leader who imbues them with a sense of purpose. They are more than receptive to the kind of quasi-religious leadership that Moses embodies. As the one on top, you must rid yourself of your modern prejudices, your fetishism of technical means. To be a leader still means that you are playing a role, out in front, fearlessly driving the group forward. If you fail to unify the group around some glorious cause, some equivalent of the promised land, then you will find that you are having to push and pull your followers who are constantly splitting up into factions. Instead, you must assume a prophetic air, as if you were merely chosen to lead them towards some higher goal. You are compelling them to follow on their own, making less a show of personal power and more a demonstration of the cause that unites them all. This will give you the proper authority to lead and an aura of power. To master the art of leadership, you must see yourself as playing certain parts that will impress your disciples and make them more likely to follow you with the necessary enthusiasm. The following are the 4 main roles you must learn to perform. The visionary. By the beginning of the 20th century, Thomas Alva Edison was seen as America's preeminent inventor and scientist. His research labs were the source of some of the most important technological breakthroughs of the time. But the truth is that Edison himself had only a few months of formal education and was not really a scientist at all. Instead, he was a mix of visionary, strategist, and shrewd businessman. His method was simple. He scoured the globe, looking at all of the latest advances in science and technology. With his understanding of business and the latest social trends, he thought long and hard about how some of these advances could be translated into products with great commercial appeal that could transform how people lived, electricity lighting up cities, improved telephones altering the course of commerce, motion pictures entertaining the masses. He would then hire the best minds in these fields to bring to life his ideas. Every product that came through his lab was inevitably stamped with Edison's particular vision and sense of marketing. Understand, a group of any size must have goals and long-term objectives to function properly. But human nature serves as a great impediment to this. We are naturally consumed by immediate battles and problems. We find it very difficult, if not unnatural, to focus with any depth on the future. Thinking ahead requires a particular thought process that comes with practice. It means seeing something practical and achievable several years down the road, and mapping out how this goal can be achieved. It means thinking in branches, coming up with several paths to get there, depending on circumstances. It means being emotionally attached to this idea, so that when 1,000 distractions and interruptions seem to push you off course, you have the strength and purpose to keep at it. Without one person on top who charts the way to this larger goal, the group will wander here and there, grasping at schemes for quick money, or be moved by the narrow political aspirations of one member or another. It will never accomplish anything great. You, as the leader, are the only bulwark against this endless wandering. You must have the strength to stamp the group with your own personality and vision, giving it a core and an identity. If you lose sight of the larger picture, then only bad things will ensue. You must play this visionary role with some dramatic flair, like Edison, who was a consummate performer and promoter. He would give dazzling presentations of his ideas and stage events to get on the front page of newspapers. Like Moses describing the promised land, he could paint an alluring picture of the future that his inventions would help create. This drew in money from investors and inspired his researchers to work even harder. Your own level of excitement and self-belief will convince people that you know where you are going and should be followed. The unifier. When Louis XIV began ruling France in 1661, he inherited an almost impossible situation. The feudal dukes and lords of France maintained tight control over their various realms. Recent ministers, such as the Duc de Richelieu and Cardinal Mazarin, had made most of the important decisions that lay outside the control of the lords. The king had been mostly a figurehead, presiding over a deeply fractured country whose power in Europe had been on the decline for quite some time. Louis was determined to reverse all of this, and his method was powerful and dramatic. At first he kept his intentions to himself, and then suddenly he announced to one and all that he would not appoint a minister to run the country. From now on, that would be his task. Next, he ordered the aristocracy to take up residence in the Palace of Versailles that he had recently constructed. The closer they lived to him in the palace, the more influence they would have. If they remained in their duchies to conspire against him, they would find themselves isolated from the new center of power he had created. His most brilliant maneuver, however, was the most subtle one of all. He created a cause for the French people to believe in the greatness and glory of France itself, which had as its mission to be the center of civilization and refinement, the model for all of Europe. For this purpose, he led the country into various wars to extend France's political might. He became the preeminent patron of the arts, making France the cultural envy of Europe. He created impressive spectacles to delight and distract the public from his power moves. The nobility were not fighting for Louis but for the greatness of the nation. In this way, he transformed a deeply divided, almost chaotic country into the supreme power of Europe. Understand, the natural dynamic of any group is to splinter into factions. People want to protect and promote their narrow interests, so they form political alliances from within. If you force them to unite under your leadership, stamping out their factions, you may take control, but it will come with great resentment. They will naturally suspect you are increasing your power at their expense. If you do nothing, you will find yourself surrounded by lords and dukes who will make your job impossible. A group needs a centripetal force to give it unity and cohesion, but it is not enough to have that be you and the force of your personality. Instead, it should be a cause that you fearlessly embody. This could be political, ethical, or progressive. You are working to improve the lives of people in your community, for instance. This cause elevates your group above others. It has a quasi-religious aura to it, a kind of cult feeling. Now, to fight or doubt you from within is to stand against this cause and seem selfish. The group, infused with this belief system, will tend to police itself and root out troublemakers. To play this role effectively, you must be a living example of this cause, much as Louis exemplified the civilizing power of France in his own carefully crafted behavior. The role model. You cannot control a large group on your own. You will turn into a micromanager or dictator, making yourself exhausted and hated. You need to develop a team of lieutenants who are infused with your ideas, your spirit, and your values. Once you have such a team, you can give them latitude to operate on their own, learning for themselves and bringing their own creativity to the cause. This is the system that Napoleon Bonaparte initiated and has since been imitated by the greatest generals of the modern era. He would give his field marshals a clear sense of the goals for a particular campaign or battle, what has become known as the mission statement. They were then empowered to reach those goals on their own, in their own way. All that mattered were the results. The idea behind it is that those who are fighting on the ground often have a better sense of what needs to be done in the here and now. They have more information at their fingertips than the leader. With a degree of trust in their decisions, they can operate fast and feel more engaged in the execution of the war. This revolutionary system allowed Napoleon's army to move with greater speed and to cultivate a team of highly experienced and brilliant field marshals. And it took great courage on his part to trust in them and not try to control everything on the battlefield. Operating with a mission statement is an effective way of softening your image and disguising the extent of your power. You are seen as more than just a leader. You are a role model, instructing, energizing, and inspiring your lieutenants. In crafting this team, look for people who share your values and are open to learning. Do not be seduced by a glittering resume. You want them near you to absorb your spirit and ways of doing things. Once you feel they have the proper training, you must not be afraid to let go of the reins and give them more independence. In the end, this will save you much energy and allow you to continue focusing on the greater strategic picture. The bold knight. Every group has a kind of collective energy, and on its own this will tend towards inertia. This comes from people's powerful desires to keep things comfortable, easy, and familiar. Over time, in any group, conventions and protocol will assume greater importance and govern people's behavior. The larger the group, the more conservative it will tend to become, and the greater this force of inertia. The paradox is that this defensive, passive posture has a depressing effect on morale, much like sitting in one place for too long will lower your spirits. More than likely you rose to the top by virtue of your boldness and desperate desire to get ahead. You took risks that made you rise to the occasion with all of your energy and creativity, and this fearless spirit attracted positive attention. The group inertia will naturally tend to tamp all of that down and neutralize the source of your power. Since you are the leader, you are the one who can alter this and set a pace that is more alive and active. You remain the bold and enterprising knight. You force yourself to initiate new projects and domains to conquer. You take proactive measures against possible dangers on the horizon. You seize the initiative against your rivals. You keep your group marching and on the offensive. This will excite them and give them a feeling of movement. You are not taking unnecessary risks, but simply adding a dash of aggression to your normally staid group. They become used to seeing you out in front and grow addicted to the excitement you bring with each new campaign. Reversal of perspective. We live in times of great mistrust of any form of authority. Some of this springs from envy of those who have power and have achieved something. Some of it comes from experiences with people who abuse their position of power to get their way. In any event, such distrust makes it harder and harder to be a strong and effective leader. Under the sway of this leveling force, you yourself might be tempted to act with less authority, to be more like everyone else, or to make yourself likable. This will only make your job that much harder. Instead, it is better that you see the whole concept of authority in a different light. The word authority comes from the Latin root autor, meaning authore, person who creates something new. This could be a work of art, a new way of operating in the world, or new values. The health of any society depends on those who infuse it with such innovations. These works or actions by individuals give them credibility and authority to do more. The great Roman general Scipio Africanus the Elder invented a whole new style of warfare in the campaign against Hannibal that was tremendously successful. This gave him the authority to lead the campaign itself and later to launch a political career. For the Romans, if you simply acted as if your position entitled you to certain powers, you lost your authority. You were no longer an author, a contributor, but a passive consumer of power. As a leader, this is how you must view yourself as well. You are an author creating a new order, writing a new act in some drama. You never rest on your laurels or past achievements. Instead, you are constantly taking action that moves the group forward and brings positive results. That record speaks for itself. Despite the spirit of the times, people have a secret yearning to be guided by a firm hand, by someone who knows where they are going. It is distressful to always feel distracted and wandering. The members of your group will give you the respect and authority you require if you earn it as an author and creator. In the end, if people mistrust and resist your authority, you really have only yourself to blame. A distinguished commander without boldness is unthinkable. No man who is not bold can play such a role, and therefore we consider this quality the first prerequisite of the great military leader. How much of this quality remains by the time he reaches senior rank, after training and experience have affected and modified it, is another question. The greater the extent to which it is retained, the greater the range of his genius. Karl von Clausewitz. Chapter 7. Know your environment from the inside-out connection. Most people think first of what they want to express or make, then find the audience for their idea. You must work the opposite angle, thinking first of the public. You need to keep your focus on their changing needs, the trends that are washing through them. Beginning with their demand, you create the appropriate supply. Do not be afraid of people's criticisms. Without such feedback, your work will be too personal and delusional. You must maintain as close a relationship to your environment as possible, getting an inside feel for what is happening around you. Never lose touch with your base. Hood economics. I knew that the ghetto people knew that I never left the ghetto in spirit, and I never left it physically any more than I had to. I had a ghetto instinct. For instance, I could feel if tension was beyond normal in a ghetto audience, and I could speak and understand the ghetto's language. Malcolm X. Starting out as a drug dealer at the age of 12, Curtis Jackson faced an unfamiliar world that contained all kinds of dangers. The business side of hustling was relatively easy to figure out. It was the people, the various actors in the game, the rival hustlers, the big-time dealers, the police who could be tricky. But strangest and most impenetrable of all was the world of the drug users themselves, the clientele upon which his business depended. Their behavior could be erratic and even downright frightening. With rival hustlers and the police, Curtis could get inside their way of thinking because they all operated with a degree of rationality. But the drug fiends seemed to be dominated by their needs, and they could turn unfriendly or violent at any moment. Many dealers developed a kind of phobia of the fiends. They saw in them the weaknesses and dependence that could befall anyone who succumbed to addiction. The hustler relies on his razor-sharp mind. To even flirt with drug use could destroy such power and lead him down the slippery slope towards dependence. If he was around the fiends too much, he could become a user himself. Curtis understood this and kept his distance from them, but this aspect of hustling bothered him. On one particular occasion, the fiends were suddenly avoiding him and he could not figure out why. All he knew was that he could not sell a batch of drugs that he had on consignment. Under such an arrangement, a higher-up source or connect had given him the drugs for free. Once he sold the entire lot, he would return a specified amount of the earnings to the connect and keep the rest as profit. But in this instance, it looked like he would not make nearly enough to pay back the connect. That could prove damaging to his reputation and lead to all kinds of trouble. He might have to steal to get the money. Feeling somewhat desperate, he went into full hustling mode, working night and day, offering all kinds of discounts, whatever it took to unload the drugs. He managed to make back just enough, but it was a close call. Perhaps the quality of the batch he was selling was inferior, but how could he tell beforehand, and how could he prevent this from happening again and again? One day he sought the advice of a man named Dre, an older hustler who had lasted an unusually long time dealing drugs on the streets. He was considered a sharp businessman. In prison, he had studied economics on his own, and he seemed to have an especially good rapport with the fiends. Dre explained to Curtis that in his experience there are two kinds of hustlers in this world. The outside types never bother to learn anything about their customers. It's just about money and numbers. They have no concept of psychology or the nuances of people's needs and demands. They're afraid of getting too close to the customer that might force them to reassess their ideas and methods. The superior hustler moves to the inside. He's not afraid of the fiends. He wants to find out what's going on in their heads. Drug users are no different from anyone else. They have phobias and bouts of boredom and a whole inner life. Because you remain on the outside, he told Curtis, you don't see any of this and your hustling is purely mechanical and dead. To raise your game, he explained, you have to first put into practice one of the oldest hustling tricks in the book, the tester. What this means is the following. Whenever you get a batch of drugs, you separate a portion of it to give out for free to certain fiends. They tell you right there on the spot whether the stuff is good or bad. If their feedback is positive, they will spread the word through their own networks, and such reports are so much more credible coming from a fellow user than reports from a hustler hyping his own stuff. If the feedback is negative, you will have to adjust and find some way to cut it to offer illusions. Apparent 2-for-1 deals with the capsule simply loaded with dust, whatever it takes to unload it. But you must always operate with feedback on the quality of your product. Otherwise, you will not survive on these streets. Once you have this system in place, you use it to cultivate relationships with your most reliable fiends. They supply you with valuable information about any kind of change in tastes that are happening. Talking to them, you get all kinds of ideas for marketing schemes and new angles for hustling. You gain a feel for how they think. From this inside position, the whole game explodes into something creative and alive with possibility. Curtis quickly incorporated this system and soon discovered that the drug fiends were not at all as he had imagined. They became erratic only when you were not consistent in your dealings with them. They valued convenience and fast transactions, wanted something new every now and then, and loved the thought of any kind of deal. With this growing body of knowledge, he could play to their needs and manipulate their demand. He discovered something else. Spending much of their time on the streets, they were a great source of information about what was going on with the police or the weaknesses of rival hustlers. Knowing so much about the neighborhood gave him a feeling of great power. Later, he would translate this same strategy to music and his mixtape campaign on the streets of New York. Maintaining a close connection to the tastes of his fans, he would alter his music to their responses and create the kind of sound that had a visceral appeal, something they had never heard before. After the remarkable success of his first 2 commercial albums, Curtis, now known as 50 Cent, stood on top of the music world, but his sense of connection, so vital on the streets, was fading in this new environment he now inhabited. He was surrounded by flatterers who wanted to be in his entourage, and managers and industry people who saw in him only dollar signs. His main interactions were with people in the corporate world or other stars. He could no longer hang out on the streets or get first-hand looks at the trends that were just starting up. All of this meant that he was flying blind with his music, not really sure if it would connect anymore with his audience. They were the source of his energy and spirit, but the distance separating them was growing. Other stars seemed to not mind this. In fact, they enjoyed living in this kind of celebrity bubble. They were afraid of coming back down to earth. 50 felt the opposite, but there seemed to be no way out. Then, in early 2007, he decided to start up his own website. He thought of it as a way to market his music and merchandise directly to the public, without the screen of his record label, which was proving quite inept in adapting to the internet age. Soon this website transformed itself into a social networking site like Facebook for his fans, and the more he delved into it, the more he began to sense that this represented much more than a marketing gimmick. It was perhaps the ultimate tool for reconnecting with his audience. First, he decided to experiment. As he prepared to launch a G-Unit record in the summer of 2008, he leaked one of the songs onto the website on a Friday night. Then the next day he refreshed the comments page every few minutes and tracked the members' responses to it. After several hundred comments, it was clear that the verdict was negative. The song was too soft, they judged. They wanted and expected something harder from a G-Unit record. Taking their criticisms to heart, he shelved the song and soon released another, creating the hard sound they had demanded. This time, the response was overwhelmingly positive. This called for more experiments. He put up the latest single from his archenemy, The Game, hoping to read negative comments from his fans. To his surprise, many of them liked the song. He engaged in an online debate with them and had his eyes opened about changes in people's tastes and why they might have grown distant from his music. It forced him to rethink his own direction. To draw more people to his site, he decided to break down the distance in both directions. He posted blogs on personal subjects and then responded to his fans' comments. They could feel they had complete access to him. Using the latest advances in phone technology, he took this further, having his team film him on their cell phones wherever he went. These images were then streamed live on the website. This generated intense traffic and online chatter. Fans would never know when such moments could happen, so they were forced to check in at regular intervals to try to catch these spontaneous moments, sometimes riveting in their banality, other times made dramatic by 50s flair for confrontation. Membership grew by leaps and bounds. As it evolved, the website came to strangely resemble the world of hustling that he had created for himself on the streets of Southside Queens. He could produce testers, trial songs, for his fans, who were like drug fiends, constantly hungry for new product from 50, and he could get instant feedback on their quality. He could develop a feel for what they were looking for and how he could manipulate their demand. He had moved from the outside to the inside, and the hustling game came alive once more, this time on a global scale. The fearless approach. The public is never wrong. When people don't respond to what you do, they're telling you something loud and clear. You're just not listening. 50 Cent. All living creatures depend for their survival on their relationship to their environment. If they are particularly sensitive to any kind of change, a danger or an opportunity, they have greater power to dominate their surroundings. It is not simply that the hawk can see farther than any other creature, but that it can see great detail, picking out the slightest alteration in the landscape. Its eyes give it tremendous sensitivity and supreme hunting prowess. We live in an environment that is mostly human. It consists of the people that we interact with day in and day out. These humans come from many varied backgrounds and cultures. They are individuals with their own unique experiences. To know people well, their differences, their nuances, their emotional life, would give us a great sense of connection and power. We would know how to reach them, communicate more effectively, and influence their actions. But so often we remain on the outside and lack this power. To connect to the environment in this way would mean having to move outside ourselves, train our eyes on people, but so often we prefer to live in our heads, amid our own thoughts and dreams. We strive to make everything in the world familiar and simple. We grow insensitive to people's differences, to the details that make them individuals. At the root of this turning inward and disconnect is a great fear, one of the most primal known to man, and perhaps the least understood. In the beginning, our primitive ancestors formed groups for protection. To create a sense of cohesion, they established all kinds of codes of behavior, taboos, and shared rituals. They also created myths in which their tribe was considered to be the favorite of the gods, chosen for some great purpose. To be a member of the tribe was to be cleansed by rituals and to be favored by the gods. Those who belonged to other groups had unfamiliar rituals and belief systems, their own gods and origin myths. They were not clean. They represented the other, something dark, threatening, and a challenge to the tribe's sense of superiority. This was part of our psychological makeup for thousands upon thousands of years. It transformed itself into a great fear of other cultures and ways of thinking. For Christians, this meant all heathens. And despite millennia of civilization, it lives on within us to this day, in the form of a mental process in which we divide the world into what is familiar and unfamiliar, clean and unclean. We develop certain ideas and values. We socialize with those who share those values, who form part of our inner circle, our clique. We form factions of rigid beliefs on the right, on the left, for this or for that. We live in our heads with the same thoughts and ideas over and over, cocooned from the outside world. When we are confronted with people or individuals who have different values and belief systems, we feel threatened. Our first move is not to understand them but to demonize them, that shadowy other. Alternatively, we may choose to look at them through the prism of our own values and assume they share them. We mentally convert the other into something familiar. They may come from a completely different culture, but after all, they must want the same things we do. This is a failure of our minds to move outward and understand, to be sensitive to nuance. Everything must be white or black, clean or unclean. Understand, the opposite approach is the way to power in this world. It begins with a fundamental fearlessness. You do not feel afraid or affronted by people who have different ways of thinking or acting. You do not feel superior to those on the outside. In fact, you are excited by such diversity. Your first move is to open up your spirit to these differences, to understand what makes the other tick, to gain a feel for people's inner lives, how they see the world. In this way, you continually expose yourself to wider and wider circles of people, building connections to these various networks. The source of your power is your sensitivity and closeness to this social environment. You can detect trends and changes in people's tastes well before anyone else. In the hood, conditions are more crowded than elsewhere. People with all kinds of different psychologies are constantly in your face. Any power you have depends on your ability to know everything that is going on around you, to be sensitive to changes, aware of the power structures that are imposed from without and within. There is no time or room to escape to some inner dreamland. You have a sense of urgency to stay connected to the environment and the people around you. Your life depends on it. We now live in similar conditions. All kinds of people of divergent cultures and psychologies are thrown together. But because we live in a society of more apparent abundance and ease, we lack that sense of urgency to connect to other people. This is dangerous. In such a melting pot as the modern world, with people's tastes changing at a faster pace than ever before, our success depends on our ability to move outside ourselves and connect to other social networks. At all costs, you need to continually force yourself outward. You must reach a point where any sense of losing this connection to your environment translates into a feeling of vulnerability and peril. In the end, this primal fear of ours translates into a mental infirmity, the closing of the mind to any ideas that are new and unfamiliar. The fearless types in history learn to develop the opposite. An open spirit, a mind that is constantly learning from experience. Look at the example of the great British primatologist Jane Goodall, whose field research revolutionized our ideas on chimpanzees and primates. Prior to Goodall's work, scientists had established certain accepted ideas on how to do research on animals such as chimpanzees. They were mostly to be studied in cages under very controlled circumstances. On occasion, primatologists would research them in the wild. They would come up with various tricks to lure the chimpanzees closer to them, while remaining hidden behind some kind of protective screen. They would conduct experiments by manipulating the animals and noting their responses. The goal was to come up with general truths about chimpanzee behavior. Only by keeping their distance from the animals could the scientists study them. Goodall did not have any formal training in the sciences when she arrived in 1960 in what is now known as Tanzania to study chimpanzees in the wild. Operating totally on her own, she devised a radically different means of research. The chimps lived in the remotest parts of the country and were notoriously shy. She tracked them from a distance, patiently working to gain their trust. She dressed inconspicuously and was careful to not look them in the eye. When she noticed they were uncomfortable with her being in the area, she moved away or acted like a baboon that was merely there digging for insects. Slowly, over the course of several months, she was able to move closer and closer. Now she could begin to identify individual chimps that she kept seeing. She gave them names, something scientists had never done before. They had always been designated by numbers. With these names, she could begin to detect subtle nuances in their individual behavior. They had different personalities, like humans. After nearly a year of this patient seduction, the chimps began to relax in her presence and allow her to interact with them. something no one had ever achieved before in the history of studying primates in the wild. This took a tremendous degree of courage, as chimpanzees were considered the most volatile of the primates, more dangerous and violent than gorillas. As she interacted with them more and more, she noticed a change in herself as well. "I think my mind works like a chimp's, subconsciously," she wrote a friend. She felt this because she had developed an uncanny ability to find them in the forest. Now, gaining access to them, she took note of several phenomena that belied the accepted data on chimpanzee behavior. Scientists had cataloged the animals as vegetarians. She observed them hunting and eating monkeys. Only humans were considered capable of making and using tools. She saw them crafting elaborate instruments to catch insects for food. She saw them engage in bizarre dance rituals during a rainstorm. She later observed a horrific war that went on for 4 years between rival packs. She cataloged some rather strange Machiavellian behavior among the males who fought for supremacy. All in all, she revealed a degree of variety in their emotional and intellectual lives that altered the concept not only of chimpanzees but also of all primates and mammals. This has great application beyond the realms of science. Normally, when you study something, you begin with certain preconceived notions about the subject. Because scientists had come to believe that chimpanzees had a limited range of behavior, that is all that they saw, missing the much more complex reality. Your mind begins the process in a closed state, not really sensitive to difference and nuance. You are afraid of having your assumptions challenged. Instead, like Goodall, you must let go of this need to control and narrow your field of vision. When you study an individual or a group, your goal is to get inside their minds, their experiences, their way of looking at things. To do this, you must interact with them on a more equal plane. With this open and fearless spirit, you will discover things no one had suspected before. You will have a much deeper appreciation for the targets of your actions or the public you are trying to reach. And with such understanding will come the power to move them. Keys to fearlessness. Few people have the wisdom to prefer the criticism that would do them good to the praise that deceives them. François de la Rochefoucauld. In the work that we produce